Greetings, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Welcome to the book study of A Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism, Volume 2 by Gareth Knight. This is a text all about the Qabalah and specifically the paths, the 32 paths, well, in this case, the 22 paths. We've gone through the 22 paths. Now we're going into the deeper symbology of the tarot cards. So this section is going to cover the Major Arcana. There are 22 cards in the Major Arcana. There are also 22 paths connecting the Sephiroth. So you might be able to see a connection here. Hot tamale. Hot tamale. Check it out. I got my old school original coffee mug back. I think I like this one better. All right, we in there like swimwear. Peace and greetings to all my favorite people in the universe. Wraith636, peace, peace. Fat Tony in the building, peace. Fat Tony, missed you last night at the session. Got to build that library. Absolutely, absolutely. Mysteries Ascent, peace and greetings. The gods in the building. Ace in the place, peace, peace. Thanks for holding it down, Ace. Star Lion, peace, peace. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Definitely not new to this, but most certainly true to this. True to this. Sean Harris, peace and greetings. Ashley B, my fellow cyclomate, fellow magus, welcome. Monica Lawan, peace, peace, my fellow Goetia practitioner. Good to see you. No Face Divination, peace, peace, all around decorated magus. Peace to you. Rosa Flame, peace and greetings. Missed you as well, Rosa Flame. It's been a minute. Glad that you have found the time to join us in this book study. Sly, peace, peace. Dub VT, we in here. We in here. Peace, Dub VT. Hope you're having a great day. Great day. Let's get down to it. Section 4, the tarot. The tarot. So we've read in detail about each path, all 22. Read in detail from the Fool all the way down to the World card, or should I say the World all the way back up to the Fool. So you being the great student that you are, you make sure to take notes, to list your correspondences, and to look for these experiences in your everyday life so that you can make the tree real, so that you can make these paths real and relevant. You've been doing that. So you are much further in the game than damn near everybody else. Because I don't know if you know, but most everybody's a pretender who knows a couple of big words, and they may have lit a candle or two, but most people don't actually do the work. So if you've been taking these notes and applying it to your real life, you've at least been doing the important part of the work. I commend you on that. And if you are pretending and playing around, I urge you to get real. Stop playing with this thing. Stop playing with this thing. Because you're getting lessons from a master, you understand? You're getting lessons from a master. I got a license.
Hey, don't forget my gun. I got a goddamn license. Hey, don't.
Got a license, right? I got a goddamn license. Starline says the tweet so far has 888 views. What tweet? Eric Barron, peace, peace. Welcome back. This is time number 3 for you. Consistency is the key to the breakthrough. Love to see it, my friend. Love to see it. Fat Tony says, I command, not beg. That's how we do it. That's how we step in with spiritual authority, right? And there's a lot of things that come with the commander, right? Not the rule of a tyrant, but the wisdom of a king, right? I rule like a king, not like a tyrant. The right job, the right task for the right soldier, etc. ad nauseum. All right, so the Greater Arcanum. The Greater Arcanum. It may seem needless to devote a chapter to the tarot trumps when we have already extensively dealt with their symbolism. However, we have seen how far apart ideas of design can be, and there is also diversity of opinion over the true attributions. The system used in this book, although in the main line of the Western tradition, differs in some respects from all previous ones. So it may be well to make a short historical examination of other people's ideas. Two, the only justification for any system, of course, lies in internal evidence. The ease with which the attributed symbols fit together. So that's important. The only justification for any system, I don't care what you're doing, what you're dabbling with, what pieces you're pulling from, you can't ask the question, oh, does this system work? Is this real? Does this actually work? That's not the question to ask. Look at this. The only justification for any system, of course, lies in the internal evidence. Let me say it again, internal evidence. The ease with which the attributed symbols fit together. So, as I've said a billion times, build up your library of correspondences, not Travis Magis's library of correspondences, not the Llewellyn Library of Symbols, Dream Dictionary Library of Correspondences. Build up your library of correspondences because your connection between these symbols start to build your own magical system. I've had this question for many years. Oh, Travis, why do I got to work with Goetia? Why do I got to work with these gods or those gods? Why can't I just make up my own gods? You can do whatever the hell you want to do. I don't care. But the thing is, if you want things to work, you've got to have a comprehensive system, right? And it's so much wiser to build your own thing after you know how those things work, right? So it's wiser to go through a system and understand it, then build your own instead of jumping in here, right? Fired up and ready to go, not knowing anything and just throwing shit together. It can work, but you're probably going to give up before it starts to work. Baby, we can do it. Take your time, do it right. We can do it, baby. Do it tonight. Womp, 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 womp. Womp, womp, womp. Oh, snap. Starlion says, I mentioned you via tweet because Kid Cudi was asking people on Twitter for horoscope help. I dropped your YouTube name. Oh, shoot. I have a Twitter account, but I don't even use it. Wouldn't that be my luck? I get a DM from Kid Cudi asking about tarot. Horoscope, and it's left on sent. Wouldn't that be some shit? Wouldn't that be some shit? Okay, so build your own library of correspondences. Why? Because the only justification for any system, of course, lies in internal evidence. The ease with which the attributed symbols fit together. A symbolic key, like a physical one, should fit its lock and open the door without any forcing. Without any forcing. With the Kabbalah, absolute accuracy is difficult, for many keys fit more than one lock, and many locks take more than one key. So, in sorting out the 88 locks and keys of the paths, the Hebrew letters, the astrological signs, and the tarot trumps, there is plenty of room for variety of opinion. And you might ask, what does he mean by 88 locks? I thought that there were only 10 spheres. I thought there were only 22 paths. Absolutely. Absolutely. But check this out. We're talking about four worlds. So you take the 22 paths of those four worlds, you get 88. Asaya, Yetzirah, Bria, Atziluth. Look at that. Look at that. 88 locks, 888 views. Y'all, the synchronicities have been ultra caffeinated, coconated, extremely ramped up these past couple of weeks. If you're in my Goetia class, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And hell, even if you're not in my class, you probably have seen that the synchronicities have been going absolutely insane all month long. Absolutely insane. They've been going dumb. They've been going ham. They've been going brazy. They've been going stupid. Baby, we can do it. Take your time, do it right. We can do it, baby. Do it tonight. And of course, you guys know very well, this is what I mean by the four worlds, right? The four worlds. One, two, three, four. If there's 22 paths per worlds, we've got 88 paths. That's 88 keys. Now, don't stress yourself out. Nobody is asking you to memorize any of this, but to be aware of it kind of sets a direction for where you're headed. Where you're headed. Blingaling. Starline says, "What happens to old slang words we stop using? Do they go into the void?" Um, well, they don't go into the void until the white folks inherit them first. At least that's how it used to be before the internet. Now everybody gets the slang at the same time, so now they probably go into the void. I'ma fuck with you. It used to be, the rednecks used to get the slang after they were expired, but now everybody's on social media, so everybody gets the slang at the same time. Sunshine Chick, always great to see you, Sunshine. The night is much brighter now. Welcome, welcome to the live stream. WT says, yes, they have been down to the song, the synchronicities, right? So, what are y'all doing with the synchronicities? What are you feeling? How does your mind work with the synchronicities? Not just that you have to do anything, but has there been a mental marker? Have these synchronicities been clues? Have they been related to any of your spiritual work? So, 88 locks and keys of the paths, the Hebrew letters, the astrological signs, and the tarot trumps. 3. Serious attention was first drawn to the tarot by the French scholar Court de Gébelin in the 8th volume of his huge work, Le Monde Primitif, published between 1773 and 1782. In those days, ancient Egypt was regarded in much the same light that the planet Venus is now. It was a place mysterious, too remote to know much about, and yet just near enough to excite speculation and curiosity. It was not until 1799 that the Rosetta Stone was found. This allowed the hieroglyphics to be translated and opened. Wow, speaking of the slang, it was not until 1799 that the Rosetta Stone was found. This allowed the hieroglyphics to be translated and opened the way to archaeological science and the specialized branch of Egyptology. Boom, there's a synchronicity. We were talking about what happens to the slang words after they're done, and now we're talking about how this French fellow opened the doorway to the Egyptian hieroglyphs, which were some of the earliest memes, right? So this allowed the hieroglyphs to be translated and opened the way to archaeological science and the specialized branch of Egyptology. So Court de Gabelin started more than he realized when he ventured the opinion that the tarot was in the beginning an ancient Egyptian book of magic. Peace, peace, atropa, peace and greetings. Welcome. An ancient Egyptian book of magic. By this somewhat unscientific guess, he stimulated an interest in Egypt and in the tarot, both of which had been neglected for a long, long time. Look how far back the tarot goes, and it probably goes back even further. As far as tarot research is concerned, he was followed by a barber by the name of Aliet in a series of books between 1783 and 1787, writing under the name of Etelia. He treated the cards from a mystical point of view. Aliet became a very fashionable fortune teller, and in the words of a later student of the system, Eliphas Levi, he possessed a highly trained intuition and great persistence of will, though his fancy exceeded his judgment. He undertook to restore to their original form the tarot figures, which had been poorly reproduced in Court de Gebelin's book. But in so doing, he added many dubious modifications of his own. He did sense a link between the tarot, astrology, and the Qabbalah, but most of his reforms were subsequently discarded by 19th century occultists. Interesting, interesting. That's making me think of some things. Almost like if, say, today, there was like some new information unlocked, right? A whole new subject of magic unlocked, right? That's only been hinted at in the past, but now like people are starting to have real clues. So imagine, it's kind of hard, but say imagine like a TikToker really gets to it first and really starts to flesh out more and more of this new branch of magic, but he's adding like modern and relevant, memeified touches to all the information. And that's like the first real explosive introduction that the general public gets to this new information. Not to downplay Atelia as a TikToker, but I'm just trying to put it in modern terms. I'm doing the same damn thing I'm talking about. In a way, I'm doing the same thing with the Goetia, right? Because I'm not just an occultist, I'm also a social media person. But just imagine like this TikToker gets a hold of this brand new magic information, but they're putting like touches on it to make it appealing for people. So you could see that once it gets out and everybody loves it and the word spreads, then like the real occultists get a hold of it and they start to remove some of the shine and polish and pomp and circumstance and reproduce it in like the raw, uncut, original way. Ryan Lewis says ancient Kemet. Yes, yes. Rosa Flame says, recently got the Hall Nap, and it's also called the Book of Thoth, like Crowley's. Hall's deck also has these Levi Hebrew correspondences, so that's been interesting to dig into. Nice, nice. Cthulhu 1979 says, question. Baal Zephon was later blasphemed by the worshippers of Yahweh by calling him Beelzebub. Is it right to continue to call him Beelzebub according to the Goetia? Oh, you're saying Baal Zephon was originally Beelzebub. If that's your relationship, then you do it, right? If you have dug into your understanding and now linked Baal Zephon with Beelzebub, and that link is strong and not flimsy, then do it. But if that's something that you just picked up and you're not certain about it, then don't do it. The end result is it working? Is it working? So if you feel strong about that, go test it out, go try it. Go test it out, go try it. If you don't feel strong about it, keep calling him Beelzebub. Absolutely. 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 So let's keep going. So here we have, what was the guy's name? The French fellow, whose name I'm probably mispronouncing anyways, Court de Gabelin, really brought tarot to the forefront because he's been digging deep into ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, right? He brought this ancient Egyptian book of magic to the public, and everybody's fascinated by it, but nobody knows anything about it. They're just fascinated by it. This barber by the name of Eliot, very popular, but also very knowledgeable about the occult, got a hold of it and began to restore some of the images. He did sense a link between the tarot, astrology, and the Qabbalah, but most of his reforms were subsequently discarded by 19th century occultists. 5. The most important figure of the mid 19th century is another Frenchman, Alphonse Louis Constant, who wrote under the pseudonym of Eliphas Levi. He's dropping dead names. He's dropping government names. I can't believe it. Alphonse Louis Constant, who wrote under the pseudonym Eliphas Levi. His work, which bears most directly on the tarot, was Dogma et Ritual de la Haute Magique. We know that book as Dogma and Ritual, 1854. Its English translation is known as Transcendental Magic. In this book, he places the zero trump, the Fool, between the trumps 20 and 21 in the sequence of the Tarot Major Arcana. His list of attributions between the trumps and the Hebrew letters thus runs as follows. So for number 1, the juggler, Aleph, that's this fellow. So he's still number 1. The juggler, going for the jugular. 2, the female pope, that's the high priestess. 3, the empress, Aleph, Beth, Gimel. 4, the emperor, Daleth. 5, the pope, He, the hierophant. 6, vice and virtue, we know that as the lovers, vow. 7, chariot, Zane. 12, the hanged man, Lamed. You know all the cards. Nothing's different here. Ard Quark, peace and greetings. Ard Quark says, good evening all. This happened in 2012 when Project Hindsight started translating primary sources of Greek, Latin, and Persian astrological texts into English for modern Western astrologers. Mhm. Okay, so translation and mistranslation seems to be the big theme before we even got to that subject, right? Because we were talking about slang. Gotta love it. So that seems to be the big focus for this chapter. Translation and mistranslation. But if you know me, if you've been watching my videos at all, you know that I'm of the school of thought that says, does it work? I don't really care too much about where it came from. I care about, does it work for me right now? Everyone's different. Some people are more focused on where it came from. And that's great because we need people to keep the historical integrity, the historical legitimacy. I personally don't care about that. Thus, all the tarot trump Hebrew letter attributions, with the exception of the last, universe Tau, are at variance with the system we use in this book. 6. Whether it be right or wrong, Levy's published system of attributions has been followed by French occultism down to the present day. The attributions were consolidated in Levy's form by Dr. Gerard in Caus, who, under the pseudonym of Papus, published Le Tarot des Bohemians in 1889, using revised tarot designs by Oswald Worth. Worth's cards have Levy's attributions marked upon them. However, the system used by Papus to elucidate the meaning of the tarot bears no reference to the Tree of Life. He uses a septenary system, which, in the words of A.E. Waite, who wrote the preface to the English edition, is arbitrary enough, as it is also contradictory enough. In Waite's opinion, he does what he can, making a brave struggle, but the result is not convincing. Struggle rap. Waite further goes on to say that his difficulty arises because he does not know what to do with the card which is numbered 0 in the Major Trump series. And his septenary distribution leaves him, therefore, in the lurch, while his allocation to the Hebrew letters outside those of the divine names is also open to question. And see, this is also something to consider when people are like, well, why do I need to follow the book, or why do I need to follow what they already have? Why can't I just make my own? Again, you can do what the fuck you want. I don't care. But if you're going to follow a system, you got to understand that it's called a system, which means that all the pieces fit. And I know the pieces fit, right? Because I watched them fall away. All the pieces mean something. So there's a reason why Mercury is attributed to the magus, the magician. There's a reason why the numbers and the astrological signs and the Hebrew letters, like there's a reason for all of them. Now, as Rosa Flame is saying here, you know, Crowley uses different Hebrew attributions from the Golden Dawn. And as Knight is showing us here, there are different attributes. And hell, even William T. Gray uses different attributions. The guy who wrote Ladder of Lights. So there's different attributions. It's not about right or wrong. It's about, does the system that they put together work? So the system that we use for the tarot is not the only one that exists and the only one that works. There are several. There are several. But the important thing is to understand that these symbols are in place in relation to each other. In relation to each other. I know the pieces fit. 8. Here Waite speaks for the main line of the Western tradition in England, which stems in its modern form from the Order of the Golden Dawn. The system used in this book, with one or two small modifications, is that which was apparently originated with this order. The order was founded in 1886, allegedly as a result of three men, Dr. Wynne Westcott, Dr. Woodford, and Dr. Woodman. All W's. That's suspicious, man. That's a lot of W's, man. That's suspicious as hell. They secured the dub, that's for sure. They probably founded the group in Abhijit when the moon was in Abhijit. Those of you who know the Vedic astrology. Finding some cipher manuscripts which gave instructions on how to bestow occult initiation by means of ritual. It soon after came under the sole leadership of S.L. McGregor Mathers, author of The Qabalah Unveiled, a translation of Noor von Rosenrath's Qabalah Dinudata. It's so weird. Wynne Westcott has that long ass beard. Excuse me, McGregor Mathers has that long ass beard in that picture. Reminds me of my baby mama's dad's beard. And two with wood in their name. Yeah, that's suspicious to me. Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but being that we're dealing with occultists here, there are no coincidences. Things are in place for a reason. I bet you there's something to it. I bet you there's something to it. Not good enough for that joke. Oh, man. We grow natural. Peace, peace. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Hope you and yours are doing just fine. 9. According to Aleister Crowley, who became a member of this society in later years, among the cipher manuscripts was an attribution of the tarot trumps to the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The manuscripts, he says, were alleged to date from the early 19th century, and on one page was a note, apparently in the handwriting of Eliphas Levi, who, Crowley thinks, would probably have seen the manuscript when he visited Bulwer Lytton in England. Dr. Wynne Westcott, in the preface to his translation of Levy's Sanctum Regnum, goes even further regarding the date of the manuscript. Speaking of himself in the third person, he writes, he has seen a manuscript page of cipher about 150 years old, which has a different attribution, i.e., from Levy's version, Gareth Knight, and one which has been found by several occult students well known to him to satisfy all the conditions required by occult science. So he saw a manuscript that has different attributions, but it works. The different attributions are all relevant. They all work with each other within that system. And the students have verified that. These occult students were, no doubt, his fellow leading members of the Golden Dawn. Their attributions run as follows: the Fool with Aleph, the Magician with Beth, the High Priestess with Gimel, Empress with Daleth, Emperor with Hay, etc., etc. The Fool is placed at the beginning of the sequence of trumps, thus causing all the attributions except the last to differ from Levy's. Another change is the transfer of trumps 8 and 11. When the trumps are placed in order upon the path of the tree of life in their traditional numbered sequence, trump 8, justice, falls upon the 19th path, whose astrological sign is Leo. Trump 11, strength or fortitude, falls upon the 22nd path, whose astrological sign is Libra. This is obviously incorrect. So the Order of the Golden Dawn, or the unknown author of the cipher manuscript, changed them about. Not only did they change them about, but they changed their numbering. Justice was made trump 11, and strength was made trump 8 in order to preserve the sequence. This modification has been followed by most subsequent esoteric pacts. This seems unfortunate, for it would surely have been better not to have interfered with the actual numbering of the trumps, but simply to have changed the cards about when applying them to the paths of the tree. It was not realized that there is an esoteric significance in the numbering of the tarot, when the tarot is considered as an entity in itself and not as a tributary to the tree of life. Ah, ah. So that's an example of why it actually is useful and appropriate to study the history, because at least you can see why certain things came about the way that they have. And you can do with that information as you will. So justice at one point was 8, and strength at one point was 11, but they were swapped so that they could be forced to fit the tree of life. Now, the tarot is its own thing, and the tree of life is its own thing, and astrology is its own thing. They do correlate. They do correlate, but it looks like a decision was made in favor of the Kabbalistic tree as superior to tarot. That's why we have that change. Strange name that I cannot pronounce says, "Follow me."
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Atropa says, reminds me of daylight savings time. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I'm waiting for daylight savings time. I keep checking for it, knowing damn well it's not coming for a couple months. 14. Crowley is of the opinion that Levi knew the Golden Dawn attributions all along, and that he published in an incorrect version so as not to break the oath of secrecy he took on initiation. Ah. This may seem far fetched these days, but McGregor Mathers had done precisely the same thing, and A.E. Waite never openly admitted his support of the Golden Dawn attributions until 1923, when apparently he had abandoned them for a new and unspecified system. If this state of mind was at all general in 19th century occultism, and it probably was, Levy may well have given deliberately false attributions also, but the evidence is only circumstantial. False evidence appearing real. Crowley contends, however, that it can be proved by analysis of Levy's work. It can be proved by analysis of Levy's works. Paul Case agrees on this point, saying that Levy's attribution of the fool to the letter Shin suggests that he knew the correct version. The letter Shin refers symbolically to spirit, as does the letter Aleph. So, according to Case's argument, Levy, not wishing to give the true attribution, gave one which hints at the correct version, namely that the Fool is a card of spirit, and thus ought to be allocated to Aleph. Case also believes that Levy was too intelligent to believe in a system so patently absurd as the one he published. The Chronicles of Sat Ra says that's not nice. Which part is not nice? Which part specifically is not nice? I wanna know. I I wanna know what makes you cry, so I can be the one who always makes you smile. 16. All this is open to conjecture, for Levy also mentions quite specifically that Trump 1, the magician or juggler, is attributed to Aleph because the figure on the card is standing in a position which suggests the letter Aleph. It could equally be a swastika, of course. What is more, had Levy known of the cipher manuscript, it is reasonable to expect that he too would have counterchanged Trump's 8 and 11, strength and justice, which in fact he did not do. However, his remarks on the design of Trump's 17 and 3 seem to indicate an agreement with the Golden Dawn. See notes on Trump design. Though the case is by no means conclusive for his idea of quintessence of the triad for Trump 3 could have been derived from its number and not from its position on the tree. And the link with Venus of Trump 17 could have been arrived at from a number of smaller stars on the card and not from the Golden Dawn allocation to the 28th path, which leads to Netzach, Sephiroth Venus. The Chronicles of Satroth says him deliberately publishing the wrong thing. Diabolical. Yeah, yeah. But if you've ever read these occult texts, then certainly you've heard of like traps and misdirection and them putting in things in the book to mislead those who are not initiated. This is an example of those type of things. Because of course, those of us who are not initiated into any type of occult system, when we see that as a warning in the book, we go into the book kind of scared. Well, which part of this is the trap that will lead me? And then we think of the word trap. We're thinking that if we read something that isn't right, it's gonna send us to hell to get punished by demons or give us bad luck or something crazy like that. When in all actuality, they're talking about symbolic attributions, so you don't tap into the same astral library type shit. Framestar Films, peace and greetings. Peace and greetings. My brother from another mother. Rosa Flame says, LOL, that's why most everyone doesn't even mess with those attributions. But it's interesting to see how some line up with others. Yes. It kind of reminds me of, operating systems, right? From Linux on up to OS X, Android and Windows, iOS. Some of them have common origin and some of them have different origin. And then some of them, like say from Linux to OS X to iOS, they come from a similar place, right? You got Ubuntu, but they've developed down different paths. And as they develop down different paths, there's a strong and heavy reliance on the code that's currently being used. In other words, there's a strong reliance on the current attributions of today's tarot cards. So since like most spiritual programs are built upon the operating system of the Rider Waite tarot, most people won't see a reason to change it. Not like if you're a computer nerd, if you're an operating system programming computer nerd, then of course you can see a useful and appropriate reason for using a system other than iOS, OS X, Windows. Right? You can see an actual relevant reason for using we could say at this point a fringe operating system. But most people don't have a reason to do that. Most people just want to get on their computer and use it. They just want to get on their computer, send some emails, look up some Facebook, Instagram, and call it a day. '16. All this is open to conjecture. For Levy also mentions quite specifically that Trump won Yeah, we already did that. So 17. The evidence of the cipher manuscript is dubious. Crowley and Westcott give very different estimates of its age, and Waite even goes so far as to suggest that it was post 1860. Crowley, again, is the only one, who mentions a note which seems to be in Levy's handwriting. Again, the tradition is that the manuscript emanated from Germany as it contained the address of a certain Fräulein Sprengel, with whom Westcott corresponded and obtained permission to start the Order of the Golden Dawn. Interesting. I wonder why he had to obtain permission. Why did he have to check in with Fräulein Sprengel? Mystery, mystery, huh? There's always somebody above the person he thinks at the high level. Hmm. Anyway, if this is the case, then Crowley's conjecture that Bulwer Lytton owned it and showed it to Eliphas Levi is a doubtful one. However, whatever the origin of the manuscript and the traditional story might well be a cover for an inner plane communication received perhaps through Mathers. Oh, they send in letters on the astral plane. You see that? You see that? So y'all think it's a game. Y'all think it's a game. They send in communication through the astral plane. You know, the astral plane these days kind of reminds me of chat rooms that used to be really popular in the early 2000s, but now nobody goes to anymore. That's the astral plane right now. Anybody remember chat rooms? You go into a chat room. Just think, man. Back then, we could have never imagined that things would be the way they are today. Remember AOL Instant Messenger? You had to be at your computer to talk to somebody online. Golly. We could have never imagined that things would be the way they are today. AIM Instant Messenger was peak. That was fucking peak, man. Those were some good days. Starline says with LimeWire playing in the background. Right, right. Like if you just put yourself back in that state, you would have never imagined that we'd be doing what we're doing right now. Tropa says, remember Live Journal. Sheesh, Live Journal. Jojo says we becoming omnipresent. Yes, yes. Evolution, right? Evolution. Rosaflame says pretty sure he had to obtain permission because it was an extension of a Rosicrucian order. That makes sense. That makes sense. Makes absolute sense. And there's talks of that in the Kabbalistic tarot text by Robert Wang. All right, so, however, whatever the origin of the manuscript and traditional story might well be a cover for an inner plane communication received, perhaps through Mathers, the Golden Dawn attributions have been accepted since their inception by Crowley, with slight modifications. Rigardi and Paul Case. Crowley, Rigardi, and Paul Case. Manly P. Hall has remained neutral, though the cards associated with him, designed by J.A. Knapp, follow Levy's attributions. A.E. Waite has hedged himself about with so many dark hints and apparent contradictions that it is difficult to know precisely what he does favor, but close examination of his text shows that he certainly accepted it at one time, though he may have abandoned it since. Rosa Flame says, can't just be starting those up without the proper blessing. OTO and AA have that problem from time to time. I see, I see. You got to have a license. Got to have a license.
Hey, don't forget my gun. I got a goddamn license. Hey, don't.
Got to have a license to do this kind of thing. At any rate, McGregor Mathers was sufficiently satisfied with the system attributions to add a footnote to Book T of the Golden Dawn Knowledge Papers, the one dealing with the tarot. In all this, I have not only transcribed the symbolism, but have tested, studied, compared, and examined it, both clairvoyantly and in other ways. The result of these has been to show how absolutely correct the symbolism of the Book T is, and how exactly it represents the occult forces of the universe. 20. Of other former students of the Golden Dawn, Israel Regardi says in A Garden of Pomegranates, 1932, the tarot trumps furnish a complete set of symbols, but the great difficulty hitherto experienced in their attribution to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet is that these trump cards are numbered from 1 to 21, accompanied by another card marked 0, which has always been a stumbling block, being attributed by various people to various letters of the alphabet, depending, apparently, on their whim at any particular moment. It should be quite obvious that the only logical place for this 0 card is antecedent to 1. And when so placed, the cards assume a definite sequential meaning, profoundly explanatory of the letters. 21. And Crowley in the Book of Thoth, 1944, says, the secret of the initiated interpretation, which makes the whole meaning of the trumps luminous, is simply to put this card, marked 0, in its natural place, where any mathematician would have put it, in front of the number 1. Waite's support of the Golden Dawn attributions is evident from the examinations of his tarot designs, though he never admitted the fact until his introduction to Stenring's Book of Formation, 1923, a passage from his Pictorial Key to the Tarot, 1911. However, gives his real ideas on the Fool. In conclusion, as to this part, I will give these further indications regarding the Fool, which is the most speaking of all the symbols. He signifies the journey outward, the state of the first emanation, the graces and passivity of the spirit. His wallet is inscribed with dim signs to show that many subconscious memories are stored up in the soul. I love that part about the Fool card, by the way. I love that part about the Fool card. He talks about the broken obelisk in the background. He talks about that bag being full, yet he's fresh, starting on the new journey. And this is really symbolizing that the Fool is a brand new avatar. He's a brand new avatar, but he's coming out of a place that is full of data, full of data. He's a new instance, but he's coming out of a place full of data. So he's not starting from scratch, he's starting over. He really has access to the entire library of the cosmos, the entire library of the universe, of every multiverse. He's got it. Now it's just whether or not he's going to tap into it. And that's just like you. That's the reason why we can do what we do with this magic stuff, with these spirits. It's not that you're reaching out to tap into some alien force. No, all cosmic forces are bundled up inside of your being, inside of the larger aspect of your being. Not your ego, duh. Not your physical body, duh. We're talking about something greater than that. So your physical body and your ego come out of you. They come out of what you are. And that thing that they're all coming out of has all the information necessary to be God and more. But that isn't useful and appropriate for every incarnation to access. So every incarnation does not access it. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. And let me tell you something. If they don't dance, they are no friends of mine. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. Monica Lawan says, reaching in. Absolutely. That's what we're doing. Moth Ra, peace and greetings. Magic is easy. Occult wisdom is easy. Spirituality is easy. All this stuff is easy, man. Being human is difficult. Keeping up with humanity is difficult. You know, it's not free. Gossip ain't free. Gossip and talking shit about folks ain't free. It takes a toll. It costs something. It costs peace of mind. It takes up space in your psyche. It attaches you to some bullshit. But see, truth and light is easy. It allows you to see what does not belong and just let it go. It's easy. It's the human shit that's difficult. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen on that? Or do we want to cling to that nonsense? To the bullshit.
You goddamn right. But you illegal what you goddamn did.
You goddamn right. Oh, that dude was so pissed off. That dude was so pissed off. Let's keep going. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. You goddamn right. But you illegal what you goddamn did. Where we at, man? Where we at? There we go. Yeah, the Fool. All right, so we're talking about the Fool. He signifies the journey outward, the state of the first emanation, the graces and passivity of the spirit. His wallet is inscribed with dim signs to show that many subconscious memories are stored up in the soul. Just imagine what subconscious memories are stored up in your soul. What is a safety dance anyway? Rosa Flame says the trope of the song is about gay guys hooking up. Thanks for clearing that up. Brimstar Film says I always imagine the cards laid out in a circle with the Fool connecting the world and the magician like a number 12 on a clock face. So it represents the start and end of each cycle. That's a cool way to see it. That's a cool way to see it for sure. And that would be relevant, right? See, that would be a system that works. That would be a system that works. Because you got to think, right? If we're working within the system and all these symbols, what's in the bag? All the stored up subconscious memories. And if you lay this out in a circle, like what Framestar said, with what you say, with the Fool connecting the World card and the Magician all together as the 12, then that means all the other cards are in his bag. He's got all the cards in his bag. Strength, Chariot, all this is in his bag. Everything. Oh yeah, that's a great visual, Framestar. That's a great visual. So with all the other major arcana in his bag, he literally has access to everything else. It's all, and see, look, that's what it means when people make that vague ass empty statement. It's all within. You just got to tap in. Well, that's what it means. All the archetypes are in your bag, and that's what makes him the fool, because he's outside of the archetypes. He's carrying them with him. And wherever you go, you take yourself, you bring yourself. Wherever you go, you bring yourself with you. Hell yeah, that's a great visualization. And that's why he's the zero. Everybody. Everybody's in that bag. Yeah. Everybody. Cool beans. One more time. His wallet is inscribed with dim signs to show that many subconscious memories are stored up in the soul. All this including a double meaning on the word speaking. In the beginning was the word. Hints pretty broadly at the 11th path and the letter Aleph. On the one hand, Manly P. Hall, in an encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. What a title, goddamn. An encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. Well, that's a book that I'll have to add to my Amazon cart. Let me see if I can find that real quick, because I don't want to forget about that one. Everybody. Yeah. So that was an encyclopedic outline. Come on, autofill, because I'm not typing all this out. Sonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, Rosicrucian. You should be able to find it with that. And you were not able to find it with that. Ain't that some shit? Maybe it's not on Amazon. Psychosocial, biological, electro manipulation. Psychosocial, biological, electromagnetic manipulation of human consciousness. Well, it's on archive.org. I'll get the PDF for now. All right. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Where were we? So, on the other hand, Manly P. Hall's book, An Encyclopedic Outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian Symbolical Philosophy, 1928, cites the argument used previously by Waite in his preface to Stenrig's book. Since Aleph has the numerical value of 1, its assignment to the 0 card is equivalent to the statement that 0 is equal to the letter Aleph, and therefore synonymous with the number 1. This argument does not necessarily follow. To begin with, the numerological attributions assigned to each letter serve a different purpose from the numeration of the trumps. The numerological attributions, see the table in Volume 1, are for calculating the potencies of Hebrew names. The numbering of the tarot trumps, always in Roman figures, except by Worth and his followers, indicates the sequence of the cards only. So if we try to amalgamate the two separate numbering series designed for different purposes, we must expect an absurd result. Even so, If we examine the argument a little further, we see that it can only hold good up to trump X, 10, and the 10th letter. The numerological series runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, etc. If the letter Yod, whose number is 10, has to have trump 10. The next letter Kaf, 20, might presumably have trump 20. But after that, we are stuck. There remains trumps 11, 19, 21 without letters, and the letters numbered 30 to 90 and 100 to 400, to say nothing of the final letter forms 500, 900 without tarot trumps. The illustrations that appear with Manly P. Hall's essay are based on worths designed and executed by J.A. Knapp. Knapp, however, issued a version of his own the following year, with an accompanying text by Manly P. Hall. These designs have the Hebrew letters and numbers printed on them and follow Levy's attributions, so Manly P. Hall tends to be associated with this method. This is not necessarily so, for in the text that accompanies the cards, he makes quite plain that those who do not agree with the attributions on the cards are welcome to ignore them. And in the encyclopedia essay, he states that Mr. Paul Case's system is, in his opinion, superior to most. Case follows the attribution of the Golden Dawn, which, he says, he worked out independently. Rosa Flame says, pretty sure that's Secret Teachings of All Ages. That's what came up when I searched it on Amazon. '26. This does not mean that Hall approves of this version of the attributions either, for in his view, efforts to assign a Hebrew letter to each tarot trump in sequence produce an effect far from satisfying. He thinks it debatable that there is any relation between the two symbol sequences, and even if there were, he thinks it unlikely that the tarots are in their correct original order. 27. He then goes on to cite Court de Gabelin, who assigned the zero trump to Ein Sof, a very astute attribution. Hmm. And suggests that a possible arrangement of the trumps is after the Bimbine tablet of Isis, with zero as the central creative power, surrounded by 7 triads of manifesting divinities. He also puts forward the suggestion that the fool is extraneous to the numbered trumps, and that as this would destroy the numerical analogy between the Hebrew letters and the cards, there may be one trump missing. This, he suggests, could be a card called the Elements, which has become split up into the 56 cards of the Minor Arcana. Ah. These are interesting speculations, and probably no one would be wasting his time who experiments with them. Yeah, that does pique my interest. But before searching for new cards, missing links, or similar brilliancies, it is best to have a good grounding in the traditional system. Amen to that. Without this, there is grave risk of easy superficiality and the inability to judge whether a new consideration is indeed an important contribution to the whole field of study, or simply a diverting coincidence of little real import. I remember when I found the 73rd Goetia. I was so excited. I found the 73rd Invisible Spirit. And I found him through Andros, believe it or not. Because I got so obsessed and so deeply invested in working with that spirit that I actually broke through the veil of the Goetia and found something new. And intuitively, I knew that instead of jumping to conclusions, I had to sit with that thing and really, really figure out what I was dealing with. I intuitively knew that it would be better to get more grounding with the entire system of Goetia before claiming that I discovered something new and adding to it. And I'm glad I did kind of wait on that. Because what I discovered was much like what he said up there in verse number 27. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. 29. There is one change in the traditional attributions, however, since first they became generally known. This change is the transfer of trumps 4 and 17, the Emperor and the Star, and is a modification put forward by Aleister Crowley. Crowley is, in many respects, the black sheep of the modern esoteric family, but he knew his Qabala. While a change in magical tradition of this nature should be regarded with great circumspection, an examination of all the factors involved seems to indicate that Crowley was right. Hence, the change has been followed in this book. Interesting. Interesting. Rosa Flame says, so then would it be 73 or 0? 0. 0. 0. You see it? Hot sauce in my bag swag. Remember that? Trying to be hip and cool. Talk about hot sauce in my bag swag. Trying to be hip and cool. Trying to be hip and cool. Talking about hot sauce in my bag swag. The fool that fell from heaven. Perversion of the truth. Where we at? Yeah, so Crowley's change of the Emperor and the Star. The story begins with Crowley's only experience of direct voice mediumship. This took place over 3 consecutive days, 1 hour per day, when he was staying in Cairo in 1904. The result of this 3 hour session was a strange script, Liber Legis, or the Book of the Law, which formed the basis of much of his later teaching. The script is reproduced together with the circumstances of its reception in The Equinox, Volume 1, Notes 7 and 10, March 1912 and September 1913, and also in The Equinox of the Gods, 1936. A full analysis of it is impossible in the present context, and it must suffice to say that it is of a most inflammatory and imperious tone, as if dictated by mystical Nietzsche, and contains much that is enigmatic, a certain amount of rare wisdom, and some material of doubtful worth. On the credit side, it contained those 3 main axioms of Crowley's, which are great spiritual truths, if understood right. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And every man and every woman is a star. 32. Crowley maintained that it was a contact with the masters of wisdom and that every word in it was a profound truth. There may well be something in this, but the communication does not seem to be that of a master because of its high handed tone. However, this does not discount the possibility that a master was responsible for its transmission. The Master Moria and the Master Kut Humi were definitely in contact with H.P. Blavatsky. but their communications were frequently distorted by her mediumship, consciously or unconsciously. Much of the renowned Mahatma letters are filled with evidence of petty spite and a preoccupation with personalities that is completely uncharacteristic of the masters of wisdom. That's one thing to keep in mind about channeling, right? When you're channeling a spirit or another intelligence, you got to be mindful of yourself and how much of yourself gets in the way. A lot of important work should be done by the practitioner, you, to remove yourself, to get yourself out of the way, to diminish yourself as much as possible. Because first of all, the self is an illusion. And if you plan on being someone who is very skilled in channeling, communicating with the spirits, you're going to want to be able to draw that line and know the difference between your identity, your ego, and yourself, your lower self, and the message that you receive. Because if you don't take the time to really find the granular influence of the self, then all your channeled messages are going to sound like you just talking. And there very well may be a lot of tapped in people who channel, but it doesn't sound like it because they haven't removed their ego from the message. So it sounds like they're just talking, just saying stuff they would normally say. But if you're somebody who is serious about really communicating with these entities and channeling from different intelligences, it's going to be super wise to learn how to diminish yourself, or else yourself is going to inevitably bleed through the message. Rosa Flame says a mystical Nietzsche is hilarious. No gods. Ashley B says, I came across Love is the Law, Love Under Will, again, earlier today. Admittedly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. Yes, I'm not going to admit that I'm well versed in it. Ghost Up says, how do we do that? Carefully, I'd say. Carefully, slowly, over a period of time. Can't rush this kind of thing. Hot sauce in your bag swag. Rosa Flame says, like I said to Sat Ra, it's like the other holy texts. No matter how divine the transmission, is coming through that person's filter of life. Absolutely. Red Star 7311 says, do you feel that the 72 angels that correspond to the Goetia are the same spirits in Enochian magic? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Different entities, different intelligences, a different doorway into the collective. Hell, I don't even think the 72 angels of the Shemhan Mephrosh correspond with the 72 Goetic spirits. Hell no. Eric Barron says, there is no gods. We are God. Well, if we are God, wouldn't that mean that we are gods?
You goddamn right. But you illegal what you goddamn did.
Rosa Flame says, definitely not on that Enochian. Definitely not. You goddamn right. Yeah, I would really look into your definition on that term, God, and like, what does that even mean? That's one thing that I would highly suggest to all, spiritual people, occult people, whatever. Take a heavy, heavy, steady look into the words that you use. What do these words even mean? What do these words mean? Before you talk to somebody else about spirit stuff, like, what does that mean? And if you have a clear, firm, solid understanding of what these words mean, now I'll go back to the conversation. Now I'll go back to the conversation. Rosa Flame says, what led you to that thought of the Shem Angels, Trav? A study of the correspondences. Like the only linking correspondence that I've seen is astrology, is their attributions to the decans. That's the only connection I see between the Shem and Mephrosh angels and the Goetic spirits. That's it. It's almost as if the Goetia was pasted on top of the Shem HaMephrosh, because those angels have a reason for being where they are. They have a reason for being called what they're called. 72 names of God. They all have a reason for being there. Um, but there's no direct link to the Goetia. I ain't seen no direct link. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it? If you see it, please show me, because if I'm wrong, I'm happy to do what it takes to become right. But no, I have not seen a connection between the Goetic spirits and the Shem angels, other than them being pasted on top of the decans of astrology. Astrology. So yeah, in my early videos, of course, I was like everyone else, just taking what the book said and what everyone else said and running with it, of course. But now that I'm a bit more mature in my spiritual walk, I don't see a connection. Framestar Film says because they're 72, people have jumped to an obvious conclusion. Right, right. Which is why it's important to do your own study, and which is why chapters like this are important, because it showed this right here is explaining the origins of how he came to the conclusions of what each card represents, what it links back to, why the numbers are where they are, et cetera, et cetera. When you know that, in a way, it kind of answers questions that you didn't even ask yet. Now, is it necessary to do tarot? No, but it does help you become, like I said, more mature in that walk, because now you have a more solid foundation, more solid springboard. Rose of Flame says, where was it then that it was decided that the angels bind the demons, and specifically with the peace psalms? I don't know where that came from. Um, I don't know where that came from. To be honest, that kind of just appeared. As far as I know, I don't know. Maybe that would be something to look into. Maybe I should look into that and add it to my Goetia book that I'm writing. Hell if I know. I'm showing them who was the high now. Pimp, nasty, funky, chapimp, and stanky chicken. Bobby and Two Crows says, what are you reading? Is this Kenneth Grant? Nope, this is not KG. This is actually GK, Gareth Knight. We're reading Gareth Knight. This is a text about Qabalah. Qabalah. Eric Barron says, only wise men know that they know nothing sometimes. True indeed. True indeed. Showing them who was the high now. So we were talking about channeling. We were talking about making sure that you do the work to remove yourself before. Otherwise, the message that you receive will retain the stench of your ego. And how wonderful it is to receive a channeled message that doesn't stink of ego. How wonderful that is. Red Star says, I think it's more of the idea of the demons and angels balancing out. You, the angels and the demons forming a pyramid of power, like the way Solomon used both powers together. I guess, but we're still, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still going off the assumption that demons Are these evil, bad things that need balancing? Perhaps they are already balanced. Who's to say that the Shem quote unquote angels, by the way, who's to say that those Shem quote unquote angels balance the goetic spirits? Who's to say that? Why do they? What? Maybe the Shem angels need balancing. Maybe the Shem angels need balancing. The quote I say quote unquote angels, right? Because who says that these are? What? Let's define the. That's what I mean. Let's define the terms. What do these words mean? What's a Goetia? What is the Shemam Mefresh? What are these angels? Did Solomon use both? Because as far as I know, I only remember Solomon working with the 72 spirits of the Goetia. And I wonder if you know what it means. What it means. C Main says sometimes the ego comes at the right time. Sometimes 100% of the time. Red Star says, I don't view them as evil. Spider Man and Venom are the same. One is just more aggressive. Oh, yeah. And look at that, right? So Venom, symbiote, it's just a symbiote. But when it attaches to the individual, now we're getting the power of the symbiote channeled through the ego of that person. Same with any of the symbiotes, right? They are what they are. They are what they are, but then they become channeled through the ego of the individual. Hell, honestly, the symbiotes would kind of be a perfect metaphor for the goetic spirits. They are what they are by themselves, but once you add the element of that human ego, it becomes something unique to that person. To find your dreams come true. Drop the books, brother. Meditate. Right? We don't need no books. We done with the books, man. Done with the books, man. Drop the water. Drop the ice bucket, man. Drop the books, man. Meditate, man. Framestar said there are no mention of the Shems in the original Lamech Gatan Lesser Keys of Solomon. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no mention of the Shem angels in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. So look at it. Check your words. Check. You know what I'm saying? Be very, very open to check yourself. Be very open to check yourself because that's how you get better. That's how you get better. I love it. Gotta keep on, keep on, keep on, keep on dancing all through the night. Eric Barron says the ego is man's problem. Once we drop ego, then we can understand. Drop the ego, man. Drop the ego, man. Just meditate. Just meditate. So, 33. When a master first makes contact with a medium, it is rare that he can do it without an intermediary. There's too great a gap between the consciousness of the master and the consciousness of the medium. A higher type of mediumship is needed than is commonly found. Hence why those astral chat rooms are so empty. For example, when Dion Fortune first contacted the masters at Glastonbury in 1922, the contact was first made by a lesser master one, in fact, who had very recently been in incarnation, having been killed in the Great War. Oh, he was able to forge the initial link, which was later utilized by the greater masters to put through that abstruse book of teaching, the cosmic doctrine, from a remote inner plane level. That's cool. That's very cool. And that's kind of what I have found working with the goetic spirits. People ask, well, what goetic spirit is easier to work with first? What goetic spirit is easier for beginners? And there are lists that people have made of those spirits, but sometimes if you approach a spirit And either you're not ready for them or they're not the right match. They will connect you with the one that you're supposed to work with if you know how to play this game right. Rosa Flame says, well, the whole idea of Solomonic magic is to bind the imbalances of the spirit since it's imbalancing you. Absolutely. Right. That's the true purpose of the Goetia. It is shadow work. It is cosmic shadow work. The balancing of imbalances. That's what Goetic magic is. Now, you can't sell it like that. Nobody's going to buy a Goetia book if they say, hey, Goetia is shadow work. No, 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 no. I want to summon a demon, right? I want to summon a demon and make it destroy my enemies, make it get me some, get me some tail, and to get me some money, fill my bank account, man. Drop the books, man. That's what we want. That's what the human race wants. But in truth, the Goetic spirit, Solomonic magic, working with these entities is about balancing. It's about balancing, so you can get to the next plane. All magic. This is the point of all magic, to transcend beyond this limited human and become what you actually are, to re-become what you actually are. Everything else is a means to that way, a means to that. So if you're serious and you're studying any magic, you're gonna find yourself on that path. That's why it doesn't matter what path. What matters is, are you taking it seriously? Are you walking the walk? Drop the books, man. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. I gotta get that clip next. Cosmic doctrine. So don't miss what was said here, because that's important. 32, there is an importance to clarify the ego so that these channel messages can come through. 33, sometimes, most of the time, what you're trying to contact and what's trying to contact you are so far apart that you might need a middleman to get you there. You might need a middleman to get you there. It's all within, Trav. We don't need a middleman. It's all within. Well, then if it's within, get to it. Get to it. Get off of YouTube and get to it. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. Drop the books. 11, 11. 11, 11. It's all within. I just tap in. Well, do that. Do that. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. 11, 11. 11, 11. Just tap in. Well, tap in. Why are you talking to me if you tapping in? Get back to tapping in. Where's Chuck D when you need him? How we doing? Y'all all right? Y'all all right? Find your dreams come true. And I wonder if you know what it means. Mm. What am I looking for here? Oh, it's not letting me download it. Oh well, back to work. It says LMBO. I'm seriously asking Trav, how was the lasagna he made? Believe it or not, I did not make the lasagna. I did not make it. What did I get instead? I got something else instead. I got something else instead. I forgot what it was. It was still Italian. It was still vegan. But no, that's a good reminder. I think I need to get that lasagna. There was a chance. Oh yeah, that's what it was. I woke up too late, so I had to make a change of plans. My sleep schedule is sometimes not congruent with what times businesses and restaurants are open. So sometimes I have to make a sacrifice. Okay, 34. It would seem that a similar process occurred with Crowley. In 1904, Crowley was a very bright young man who had passed through several grades of the Order of the Golden Dawn. Though this society had already fallen on evil days, owing apparently to mismanagement and internal dissensions, it is possible that the hierarchy felt that it was worth the effort to try to establish direct contact with Crowley so that the guttering light of the Western mystery tradition in England should not go out altogether. It would have been difficult to tell at this time whether he would run off the rails or no, but anyway, it seems that the opportunity was considered worth the risk. Crowley was traveling extensively throughout the world at this time, picking up mystical knowledge where he could, and it was quite logical that the highly technical process of a direct contact with him should be attempted while he was in Egypt, the center from which the Western mystery tradition largely stems. The psychic stresses in this region were highly potent. Ritual magic had been practiced for thousands of years, would make such an operation easier. 36. It was indeed a tremendous feat that was to be attempted for a master operating on a high abstract mental levels to concentrate enough force down the planes so as to first attract the attention of and then pass a message to a man on the physical plane who had never practiced clairaudience before. Nevertheless, it was done. And it would seem that in order to do it, a technical device known as a magical body was used. That is what probably happened. And it must be realized that all this is conjecture based upon circumstantial evidence only. Was that the master passed the teaching through an inner plane intermediary who used as a vehicle of etheric manifestation the magical body, a coordinated system of psychic stresses like a disembodied personality, which can be used or discarded and stored at will of an ancient Egyptian priest. That's some cool stuff right there, huh? 37. This would account for the hieratic imperious tone of the script, for the original message would be colored by this magical body, in much the same way that a beam of light would be colored by a stained lens. And as, in order to overcome the technical difficulties, the magical body would have to be one of considerable power, so would the message tend to be biased on the power side. If we add to this bias the possibilities of distortions and interpolations by Crowley's subconscious mind, then it will be seen that in order to interpret the script, it will be necessary to try to get at the spirit behind it rather than to take the letter of it at face value. Well, maybe there isn't much you can do to remove your ego from the equation. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's extremely difficult to do that because we're not just talking about the conscious mind, we're talking about the subconscious mind. 38. This, it is evident, Crowley failed to do. He accepted the whole thing literally, including heady references to himself as the prophet for the new age, references of a type which any medium of even the slightest experience would suspect as being an interpolation of the subconscious mind. To put the matter more occultly, Crowley could not handle the force that was directed onto him by such a contact, and consequently lost his magical equilibrium, with the usual result of a gross inflation of the personality's ideas of its own importance. From accounts of McGregor Mather's behavior in the Order of the Golden Dawn, it would seem that he too may have experienced this trouble. It is one of the occupational hazards of occultism, and serves to give the subject a bad name with uncommitted observers who naturally have little patience with the disproportionate crowing of occult cocks on their own esoteric dunghills. Dang. 39. However, Crowley's biography is another story. What is of relevance here is that in the script there occurred the phrase, "All these old letters of my book are right, but Zaddy is not the star." On the Tree of Life, Zaddy is the Hebrew letter assigned to the 28th path, and using the Golden Dawn system of attributions, the associated tarot trump is the star. Here was a problem. There is no question of Zaddy not being the Hebrew letter of the 28th path, so the thing to be changed was the tarot trump. Yet up until the current attribution had been accepted, not only by the leading members of the Golden Dawn, but also by Crowley himself, who had studied the tarot extensively in its connection with the Tree of Life and had been perfectly satisfied that the Golden Dawn attributions were correct. The distinction to be made was, therefore, a subtle one. Therefore, a subtle one. It was many years before Crowley hit upon a solution to the problem, which was that the star should be counterchanged with the emperor, just as justice is counterchanged with strength. The main authority for this change is a glyph known as the Mobius ribbon, which, with the zodiacal signs placed upon it, counterchanges two pairs of them. Leo and Libra revolve about Virgo and Aries, and Aquarius revolve around Pisces. In these pairs, it is not the astrological signs themselves which change their positions on the tree of life, but the tarot trumps associated with them. The astrological signs are keyed in with the Hebrew letters. Thus, in the first pair, strength and justice are counterchanged, and in the second pair, the Emperor and the Star. The Emperor goes to the 28th path, and the Star replaces it on the 15th. Unfortunately, when he made this counterchange in the Book of Thoth, Crowley made the faux pas of changing the astrological signs as well, so that Aries is on the 28th path and Aquarius on the 15th. How Crowley should have come to do this is uncertain, but an examination of his design of Trump 4 suggests a combination of indecision and intractability. See the notes on the design of Trump 4. 44. Actually, the change of path and consequently astrological sign for each trump is not so revolutionary as might at first appear. The main superficial objection stems from the fact that Trump 4, the Emperor, contains Aries symbolism, and therefore would go most unhappily on the 28th path and the sign Aquarius. Reference to the old Marseille tarot, however, would show no trace of Aries symbolism on the card. The fleur de lis scepter, suggestive of Aries perhaps, was Worth's introduction, and all the heads came even later from Waite. On the Marseille's card, the scepter is a Venus one. This is a very significant. The 28th path leads from Yesod, whose magical image is the strong man, suggestive of the emperor, to Netzach, the Sephiroth, whose mundane chakra is Venus. Furthermore, the emperor is the consort of the empress, and she is another Venus figure, being on the 14th path, Daleth, Venus. Hmm. This is some pretty convincing information here. However, the real justification must be based on how it appeals to the intuition of each individual student. Any who are equipped to disagree with the attributions we use in this book will be capable of reconstituting their own version of the relevant chapters. Indeed, such will have no great need of this book in the first place. It may be asked, if the traditional attribution was wrong, why it should not have been spotted before by Crowley or MacGregor Mathers or his associates, or subsequently by other commentators following the Golden Dawn tradition. The answer to this is that the change is quite a subtle one. The incorrect placing of strength and justice was obvious, and so they were counterchanged quite empirically. It was assumed that the numbering of the tarot cards had become distorted. The counterchanging of the star and the emperor is less obvious, particularly as they counterchange onto parallel paths on the same side of the tree, so that one is an analog at a different level of the other. Indeed, a fair case could be made for retaining the traditional Golden Dawn attributions, though the Yetziratic texts and esoteric titles seem to support the change. 47. When one gets down to the basics, the only reliable attribution on the Tree of Life are the Hebrew names and the letters. The Hebrew names and the letters. All others are later additions to the system and subject to experiment and discussion. Even the astrological signs are open to question, though, as it happens, there seems to be little modern controversy on this subject. A casual reference to the Sefer Yetzirah will show that, apart from the general principle of the elements, planets, and zodiacal signs being allocated to the mother, double, and single letters respectively, no definite sequence of attributions is given except for Aleph air, Mem water, and Shin fire. Medieval commentators gave many varying accounts of the true attributions. Page 222. Red Star says, we can't forget that the stars are still exerting real influence, regardless of the name given in various texts, cultures. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Rosa Flame, if you're going to do a live stream of the Book of the Law, check out Rosa Flame's other channel found at Jehovah's Litness 77. You can see it here pinned at the top of the comments. Check out Jehovah's Litness 77 and subscribe to the channel. Sounds like my friend may be committing to doing a read of this text by Crowley. So if you're interested in that, most certainly subscribe to Jehovah's Litness 77. I also haven't read the Book of the Law, so I don't know anything about it other than, the main quotes that have been repeated. Eric Barron says, a little fun fact. Aleister Crowley was a mountaineer. Atropa says, yes, he was. Wasn't he the first to make it to the top of Mount Everest? Interesting. Interesting. I didn't know that he climbed Everest, but Everest has been popping up for me a lot. I often see the people that die on Mount Everest, and honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is that these people are, I don't know, a self-sacrifice to that entity that is that mountain. I think that a lot of people go up there and with the intention of giving themselves to that entity. It's a very holy mountain. Very holy mountain. You've got to train. You've got to really train to embark upon that. Joy Empress, peace and greetings. Peace, peace. Ever rest. Maybe when you die up there, it's easier for you to ascend into the heavenly realms, seeing as to how it's so close. Heavenly realms. All right, where we at? I think it is time for a cup of coffee. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. Quite a few pages to go. Oh boy. It's only 11:30. Why you do me like that?
Damn. Man, why you do me like that? You ugly motherfucker, you. Damn. You fucked me.
Why you do me like that? Yeah, why you do me like that? Veronica Archaga, peace and greetings. I love you, Veronica. Welcome, welcome to this book study. We're talking about the Major Arcana up in here. Up in here. Eric Barron says, it's in our DNA. We are designed to conquest, to get greater, to do better things, no matter what, always striving for a higher plateau. You know, I would disagree with that. I mean, well, yeah, it's definitely in our DNA, but I think that that aspect of this desire to conquer and to aspire to greater things, I think that is entirely due to the shift of the collective unconscious into the masculine territory. When the collective unconscious has been shifted as a whole into the masculine, that's when that came about. This desire to conquer, right? And we could say that that probably happened, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago, but it wasn't always like that. Because to have this desire to conquer and to become better literally implies that you are not already you're not already, right? To feeling like you have to do that means that you have this innate belief that you are not. So that definitely came when the polarity shifted to the masculine, 1000%. But I don't think it was always like that. And you can also see that that polarity is changing again. It's changing again. That's not a that desire to conquer is not a quality of humanity. That's just a quality of a polarity that humanity is under currently. Because if you believe as a species that the earth is yours, that the material plane is yours, just off rip, there's no desire to conquer other people or other lands or other concepts or territories. So there's been a shift in what humanity believes that it is. And it happens from time to time. It happens from time to time. It shifts from one to another, from one to another. That's just how it goes. That's an exhausting way to exist, to be quite honest. I want my legacy to come after me and continue conquering. Imagine cursing yourself like that to permanent existence in the material plane. I desire no such thing. Everybody. Alchemy Gold. Good evening, Alchemy Gold. It's been a minute. Good to see you, Alchemy Gold. Eric Barron says, so basically, until we all do the self-reflection, the world is going to be in a state of chaos because in the aggregate, it is chaos. Yeah, but I don't think it's up to humanity. I think it's bigger than human beings. We are kind of just puppets in a way to speak. We just play out what the energy is already doing. We just play out what the energy is already doing. So we'll just continue to exist. Things will shift back and forth. There's no problem. There's no disorder. Existence is what it's supposed to be at all times. We just exist and live. Everybody, yeah. The second chamber. Peace and greetings, my friend. Peace. Welcome. Late night learnings. Second chamber says agreed. Conquest or the need to dominate stems from the illusion of lack. Right, right. So I cannot accept that humanity is that. I think that's learned behavior, and that's also a reflection of the energy that is present. That's all. Rock your body right. back streets back. All right, all right, all right. Bum, ba-na-na-na-na, bum, ba-da-na. All right, ba-na-na-na-na, bum, ba-da-na. I'm showing them who was the high now.
Rack bar. I'm showing who was the high now. Pimp, nasty, funky pimp, and stinking chicken.
Rack bar. All right, so let's read a little bit more. Let's read a little bit more. Rack bar. I'm showing them who was the high now. 222, 48. A similar situation holds with the tarot, and by its very nature, the pictorial symbols can be interpreted in the light of various contexts. As there are links between various aspects of life, so are there links between parts of the tree of life. Some symbols can be placed in more than one place. The planets, for example, have links not only with certain paths, but also with certain Sephiroth. Again, the Emperor, to take an example which happens to be under discussion, could, with varying degrees of validity, be placed upon Kether, Hokmah, Chesed, Gibura, Tifereth, or Yasad, to say nothing of any of the paths. There is a considerable degree of tolerance in the meaning of the tarot images, particularly as most of the finer points of symbolism have been knocked off in its history as a fortune telling or gaming device. The best versions we have are very corrupt, and considerable intuition has to be used to ascertain their possible original form. This, however, is not necessarily a tremendous handicap to us, for as Oswald Wirth says in his Le Symbolisme Hermétique, by their very nature, the symbols must remain elastic, vague, and ambiguous, like the sayings of an oracle. Their role is to unveil mysteries, leaving the mind all its freedom. And what a powerful way to be, right? What a powerful way to be. I love that. I love that. By their very nature, the symbols must remain elastic, vague, and ambiguous, like the sayings of an oracle. Their role is to unveil mysteries, leaving the mind all its freedom. I'm a strong believer in that. The best teacher, I think, the best teacher finds a way to redirect your question back to yourself so that you end up answering it yourself. I think that's the best way. Not just because it makes me feel good, but I have evidence that that's the best way. But you know, the ego wants someone else to tell us what to do, which works for a while, but it doesn't provide real transformation. Real transformation comes when you realize something. There's a difference between realizing and just becoming aware of data. You can become aware of data and use it for years, but that doesn't mean you realize what that data actually means. Joy Empress says redirect it like asking it back to them. No, not not literally. Not literally, but right when we say redirect it, it could be more like hmm. Yes, but not literally, right? Not literally asking the question back to you. In a way that bypasses the conscious mind. It's like looking in a mirror. When you look in a mirror, if I say that the answer's in a mirror, you know that the answer's not literally in the physical composition of the mirror. You're gonna look in the mirror and it's gonna trigger something subjective. And through that subjective data, you'll come to a realization based on what you already have in your head, not something that somebody else gave you. Look in the mirror is always the answer. The second chamber says, so symbols are mental triggers for interfacing between the material and ethereal planes or domain states. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because you got to think, the word education comes from the root educo, educe, to pull out from within. Education, see, we thought that indoctrination is education. Indoctrination means to put it in somebody else. But education is to pull it out from yourself. To pull it out from yourself. And sometimes, all the time, we need a little bit of help to do that. Otherwise, we would just do it in the first place. So the mirror is the best teacher because it shows you where to look. It shows you where to look. Everybody here. Rode in an ambulance car. Everybody, everybody rode in an ambulance car. Ooh, everybody. You guys know that song? Rode in an ambulance car. Throw your hands up. If you rode in an ambulance car. Ooh. Man, that guy was singing his heart out in that barbershop. Don't know what the hell he was talking about, but hey, he was having a good time. Ashley says, never heard that one. Look up everybody who rode in an ambulance car. It's short. It's just like a little meme, but that dude walked in that barbershop and sang his heart out. Look up everybody who rode in an ambulance car. Now that'll get stuck in your head. Who rode in an ambulance car? I almost put that as a clip up here, but I'll do it next time. See, I gotta make a list, man. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. I gotta get that one from 50 Cent too. Didn't even need to finish typing it in. Yeah. It was floating around the internet for a while a couple years ago. I just never forgot it. All right, so back to it once again. So yeah, by their very nature, the symbols must remain elastic, vague, and ambiguous, like the sayings of an oracle. Their role is to unveil mysteries, leaving the mind all its freedom. 49. We have reproduced in this book the Marseille's Tarot. For though crude, it is the exoteric tarot generally considered to be the purest. It represents the cards as they have been passed down to us, untampered with by later occultists. Kurt Seligman, in his The Mirror of Magic, makes a telling point when he says how curious it is so many occultists believe that a traditional system such as the tarot should have perpetuated itself through millennia, when these same occultists are ready to distort and add their own surlicues to it on the slightest pretext, seeming to forget that by their own bad habits must have existed before them. The Marseille's Tarot is also devoid of the worst exoteric extravagancies that caused some old tarots to have up to 40 major trumps. including representations of arts, sciences, virtues, vices, signs of the zodiac, and so on. Furthermore, Oswald Wirth's designs were based on these, and as he was the first in the modern field to produce a well known esoteric pack, most other designers have built on the foundations he laid. 50. Wirth's designs were published in 1889 and received support from the contemporary French occultists Stanislas de Guiche, Gerard Incaus, and others. In their symbolism, though based on the Marseille's tarot, they follow closely the ideas suggested by Eliphas Levi in his books. Most of Levy's ideas are in his Dogma et Ritual, together with two plates of his conception of Trumps 15 and 7, the Devil and the Chariot. He never got around to drawing up a full set for publication. Oh, we missed out on an Eliphas Levi tarot. Wouldn't that be something? We would have had Baphomet. 51. Contemporary with Worth's pack would have been the Golden Dawn version, but which at this time was withheld from general knowledge and even to this day has never been published. Descriptive details of parts of it are to be found in Crowley's Equinox and Regardy's The Golden Dawn. Hmm. I wonder if the Golden Dawn pack that is published is the one he's referring to. I should look into that. Because I do have the Golden Dawn deck. I wonder if it's the same one that he's talking about here. Rose of Flame says, recently saw a lecture about the hidden Jewish symbolism in the Marseille. Definitely a sacred deck. That was my first deck. And you know, I never really, it just wasn't, I still have it. I just haven't really used it, for sure. I haven't used it for sure. It's not as interesting looking as the others. And with me trying to learn, with just the plain designs on the minor arcana, it was damn near impossible for me to realize what these cards represented. I should dig it up out of the garage, because that's where it is. It's just sitting in the garage, in perfect condition, mind you. I think I got it from the dollar store. I think at one time Dollar General was selling the Marseille's deck. It had a book with it, and it was in a nice. No. I got it off Amazon. Everybody roll in an ambulance car. Rosa Flame says the Robert Wang one. Absolutely. Atropa says, not my thing either. I prefer the Waite deck and Crowley's Thoth Tarot. And now that I know a little bit more, though, I think I might tap back into it. Framestar says, still waiting to get my hands on the Austin Osman Spare deck. They uncovered it in some dusty basement in London several years ago. Looks amazing. Wow. Yeah, that sounds super cool. I didn't even realize that there was an AOS deck. A few of you might want to check that out. I don't think I've even seen anybody using that like in general on YouTube. Hell yeah, man. Come back to doing tarot readings with the AOS deck. Greetings. '52. The next widely known published pack after Worth's was the Writer Pack, so called after the London publishers. These were designed by A.E. Waite and drawn by Miss Pamela Coleman Smith, both members of the now reconstituted Order of the Golden Dawn. This was in 1911. The designs generally follow the traditional pattern, but included several innovations that show the influence of the Golden Dawn system of attributions. Apart from the rather crude draughtsmanship, it remains one of the best of esoteric packs. Facts. 53. Matters rested thus until 1929, when the American version was published by J.A. Knapp in collaboration with Manly P. Hall. In the essay by Manly P. Hall, which accompanied it, was announced the intention to produce a version of the tarot based on the original diagrams appearing in Court de Gabelin's Le Monde Primitif. Furthermore, they claimed to have added all that has been demonstrated as essential from the more modern packs, used colorings as an effort to emphasize the original symbolic meaning of the cards, and introduced small hieroglyphical figures in order to link the card with the philosophy of the ancient Qabbalah. 54. These two, if anybody, were certainly qualified to attempt such a task, having just finished collaboration on the enormous tome and encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy, which is perhaps the most comprehensive book on occult subjects ever published. However, the resulting tarot cards are somehow disappointing. They are, in fact, what one might have expected from two men who knew probably more than anyone else of their time on occultism in general, but not enough about the tarot in particular. The numeration follows worth, and the introduction of extraneous hieroglyphic figures is of debatable value. But as Manly P. Hall says, all of these additional attributions, if one does not agree with them, can be ignored. The designs are in color, but in spite of this, or more probably because of it, they do not appeal to the eye. Use of color is terribly difficult on tarot cards. I guess I should look into some of these different traditional decks here, especially after this book. Fuck the bucket of ice, man. Rose of Flame says Gareth Knight can chill. It's a gorgeous deck. I'll have to see, man. I'd like to check it out now. Because you brought it up first, and now Gareth Knight's talking some shit about it. Use of color is terribly difficult. No, what do you say? The designs are in color, but in spite of this, they do not appeal to the eye. Golly. I'd like to see for myself. 55. About this time, another commentator on the tarot was making his presence felt, Paul Foster Case. He had at first used the writer version of the tarot, but eventually set out to and designed his own with the artistic assistance of Jesse Burns Park. In Case's view, his artist followed a little too closely the tricks of style of Pamela Coleman Smith, but nevertheless a fine pack resulted, this time openly using the Golden Dawn attributions. With certain exceptions, Case followed way closely, and the general effect is an all-around improvement upon the writer pack. Case's book, The Tarot, has long been the best available elementary text upon the subject, too. So anybody who wants to learn tarot, you might want to grab that book, The Tarot by Paul Foster Case. He's got plenty of books on the subject, and many of them are pretty small, pretty short. You can get yourself a little collection. I love they called the page Slave and Night Warrior. I've never seen that before. The second chamber says, Peep Samuel Aeon War's tarot system and interpretation. I rock them solely for personal use. All right, my list is getting pretty long here. And who else? Paul Foster Case. Yeah, I'm going to have to check out all these decks. Framestar says the Solabusca is a very interesting deck. Some suggest it was a workable grimoire system. See the book of The Game of Saturn by Peter Mark Adams. I was seriously debating whether or not I wanted to get that book. It sat in my Amazon cart for a long time. I was wrestling back and forth. And I think when I was ready to get it, like it went out of stock or something like that, and I never looked back. Solabusca. Most certainly an interesting deck. 56. All the packs hitherto mentioned are continuations of the medieval traditional designs. In 1944, Aleister Crowley published The Book of Thoth, which is a great book, in which were tarot designs deliberately cast into new forms. It was an attempt to create a modern tarot as opposed to the usual medieval imitations, which, in Crowley's view, were gross, senseless, pitifully grotesque, and also without even the knowledge of the true attributions. 57. This project took 5 years, the artist being Lady Frida Harris. All the designs are reproduced in the Book of Thoth, though mostly in black and white. Full color versions of the whole set have never been published, mainly because of the high costs involved in meeting the artist's demands for perfect color reproduction. Crowley followed the Golden Dawn system of attributions in the main, though with the modifications we have already mentioned. He also changed the name of several cards. The general use of the complete pack is marred, however, for all but Crowley's followers, in that it incorporates a fair proportion of his private ideas on the New Age. Generally correct in principle, perhaps, but not in his detailed application and symbolism, which is somewhat warped to his own personal pattern. 58. Such warping is to some extent inevitable in whoever sets down to design a whole pack, and so perhaps the only solution to the tarot problem is for everyone to design his own individual version, modifying it as he develops in realization. That's a good idea. 59. In arriving at colors in which to portray the cards, most attempts are not at all happy. If some system is devised, say, of tricking out figures in red jackets and blue trousers to represent consciousness and subconsciousness, little is gained. For this type of symbolism tickles only the intellect. It does not speak directly to the soul. In addition to this, earlier designers were severely hampered by the techniques of color printing available in their day. And even today, with modern photolithography, to produce color accurately is an expensive business. Earlier packs often had only bare indications of color, with areas of chalky blue, chalky pink, chalky green, and chalky yellow. Paradoxically, modern color printing does not help the designer greatly. It only serves to reproduce his difficulties the more faithfully. A set system of color symbolism carried through a series of pictorial designs can have an atrocious aesthetic effect. Though putting the colors in light pastel shades as opposed to the old tradition of bright, clear colors, often in fantastic profusion, does reduce the more distressing clashes to a minimum. 61. If, however, one is using a complicated color system such as the four scales of color, of the Golden Dawn tradition, even more awkward problems assail the designer, for the light pastel evasion cannot be pursued. One is faced with cards designed with various shades of red only, or trying to distinguish black figures on indigo backgrounds, and so on. The Golden Dawn did get round this difficulty to some extent by use of complementaries of the main colors, so that an all red card could be relieved by pieces of green. The basic complementaries are black white, red green, yellow blue, violet orange, from which, by reference to the spectrum, all complementaries of intermediate shades can be found by experiment, though it is almost impossible for any artist, however skilled, to get them exact. Michael Osborne says, I use the Hermetic Tarot. That's a really good one. I've got that one. 62. The color scales are based on clairvoyant investigation, but experience shows them to vary somewhat from person to person. Crowley did much original research on these lines when designing his pack, and Lady Harris went to immense pains to reproduce the astral colors accurately, so her insistence on highly accurate reproduction is understandable. The color scales are based on clairvoyant investigation. Look at that. Look at that. It must be said, however, that it is a virtually impossible task, for many astral colors have no correspondence in physical pigment, the closest approximation being in colored light, and a stained glass. A stained glass tarot would be impractical to produce or to use. Again, design in color has its difficulties, even in highly skilled hands, as reference to the reproductions in the Book of Thoth will show. Comparison of the color reproductions with those black and white shows that the introduction of color tends to blur the clear outlines of design. An interesting piece of tidbit is they're now experimenting with ways to enable a human being to see colors that we're not able to see yet. In the spectrum of, I want to say like blue, red, and green. I think that's right. Yeah, blue, red, and green. Up in like the blue green area, there are a lot of colors that the human eye can't see. We mostly see in like a red and blue spectrum. We mostly see everything in that red and blue spectrum, but there's a lot of colors up in that green area, specifically in that blue green area, that we're literally not able to see. So there's like cones in our eyes that activate when triggered by those types of colors, and they're using AI, of course, and technology to create colors that stimulate those underused areas. So we might be looking at new colors very soon. I wonder if those are the colors that we typically see when we're working in the astral plane. For me, everything's closer to that red blue center where we've got the pink and the purple. But in the books about chaos magic, he often talks about a color called octarine, and that's supposedly a color that human eyes haven't quite seen yet, but it's the color of a specific type of magic. And that's typically the color scheme that I use that you'll see in the background of my room and whatnot. Kind of a bluish, purplish, pinkish color. But we'll see. '63, Andras. Perhaps the best compromise has been hit upon by Case. His set was marketed by his group, the Builders of the Aditum, BOTA, is in black and white line so that students are at liberty to paint in their own colors or leave them blank as they prefer. The coloring of one's own pack, guided by professional line drawing, is perhaps the next best thing to producing one's own pack entirely. a task well worth doing, but beyond the technical accomplishments of many. We should bear in mind another of Oswald Wirth's remarks. A symbol can always be studied from an infinite number of points of view, and each thinker has the right to discover in the symbol a new meaning corresponding to the logic of his own conceptions. This brings us to a consideration of certain minority views on design and attribution. 65. One large minority prefers to deck out the cards in Egyptian guise. This body of opinion originated in France following the tradition of Count Court de Gabelin's original hypothesis. This received impetus from writers such as Paul Christian. There is little evidence to prove that the tarot is of Egyptian origin, though information from inner plane sources tends to confirm it. One is on safer, though still uncertain, academic ground to regard it as a medieval Rosicrucian document, though whether originated by them or adapted from an existing tradition is open to question. In any case, the real origin is incapable of definite objective proof. 66. The Frenchman R. Falconer in Les 22 Lames Hermétiques de Tarot Divinatoire, 1896, claimed to have traced the origin of the tarot from Egyptian monuments and was taken seriously by a scholar of the caliber of Jesse Weston, From Ritual to Romance. But the evidence is doubtful. However, several Egyptian pacts have been produced from various sources. Most of them, though, including the American Zane Brotherhood of Light version, show more evidence of French than Egyptian draughtsmanship. The ancient Egyptians had a profound knowledge of the psychological effects of line and angles, but these attributes, which would have been quite easy to copy from Egyptian monuments, are conspicuously absent in the tarots which follow this tradition. Zane follows the French system of Hebrew letter attributions, except that Trump 21 is allocated to Shin, and the Fool, which he calls the materialist, is numbered 0 or 22 and allocated to the letter Tau. Nap, incidentally, is also an odd man out in that numbers the universe 21 and or 22. Zane's astrological attributions differ from all others mentioned hitherto, namely using his own names for the trumps. Ah, look at that. He's assigning Pluto to the Fool. So what's that mean about, let's see what else he's got. The Lightning, the Black Magician, the Wheel to Uranus. There's one more. Who's that last one? I got Pluto. Okay, the Enchantress to Neptune. Interesting. Who's the Enchantress? Who is card number 11? The Enchantress. Where? I'm seeing everything except that card. What the hell? Ugh. Frustrating. Oh, justice. That's what it is. Justice. Never seen justice called the enchantress before. Okay, that works. Another system of attributions we might note is that of the Swedish Kabbalist Knut Stenring. He prefers Aleph, Juggler, Air, Beth, Sun, Sun, Gimel, Moon, Moon, Daleth, Chariot, Mars, Hay, Empress, Aries, Vow, Emperor, Taurus, Zane, High Priestess, Gemini. That's interesting. Strength with Cancer, Temperance with Leo, Lovers with Virgo, Death with Mercury. Hmm. It will be seen that, though the tarot attributions differ, the astrological allocations to the Hebrew letters are the same as the Golden Dawn or British tradition. The Dutchman Thierens has different ideas about the astrological attributions, however. He allocates the zodiacal signs Aries to Pisces to trumps 1 to 22, 1 to 12, and Saturn, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Venus, Moon, Sun, Jupiter to the remaining trumps in numerical sequence, with the Fool, 0 or 22, to Earth or Pars Fortuna. Hmm. Okay, that's interesting as well. 70. Any who wish for greater details of these systems. And you know what? What's that book by William G. Gray? Kabbalistic Concepts, I believe. And he goes through in detail, William G. Gray, his attribution of these cards to the paths and how they are unique. They're different from the traditional. But I believe that even Gareth Knight, the author of this book, wrote an introduction to that book, which is pretty cool, right? And he's basically saying that there's no right or wrong attribution as long as the system is comprehensive and it works together. And in reading that book, I haven't finished it, but I've seen, like, though the cards may be different, like the meanings of the paths pretty much remain the same. So 70. Any who wish for greater details of these systems should refer to Zane's Sacred Tarot, Stenrig's Book of Formation, or Thieren's General Book of the Tarot. In defense of our own system, we would say that while Thieren's is an eminent astrologer, his knowledge of the Qabbalah seems very limited, and that though Zane's propagandizing efforts on behalf of esoteric philosophy are highly commendable, his Kabbalism is somewhat unorthodox, to say the least. He considers the pillars of manifestation to be representative of good and evil, for example, and his Sephirotic attributions run from Kether to Malkuth, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Moon, and the Sun, most of which seem difficult to justify. Stenrig, on the other hand, is a Kabbalist of no mean erudition, but his knowledge of the tarot, which is non-Hebraic, seems doubtful. There is a further system of attributions put forward by Frater Achad, a follower of Crowley. This is a little known one, for his published works were privately printed in small editions. The relevant ones are QBL, or the Bride's Reception, and the Egyptian Revival. He wondered if, as the Serpent of Wisdom ascends the tree, the tarot cards ought not be allocated from path 32 to path 11, instead of the usual descending order. He tried this and thought the result an improvement on the lower parts of the tree, but not so on the upper parts. The thing which exited him, was that the lower paths now seemed to show a wonderful astrological harmony, since many of them were now united with their planetary rulers, etc., in the Sephiroth. This set him to rearranging all the trumps in an attempt to extend this astrological harmony over the whole tree, which task he found, in his own opinion, to be possible. In order that others may form their own opinions, we give the system below with, for easy reference, the mundane chakras of the Sephiroth, which each path joins. Hmm. So, path 11, Calf, Wheel of Fortune, Jupiter, Zodiac Premium Mobile, Tau, Universe card with Saturn, Shin, Judgment with Fire, Zaddy, Star, Aquarius, Resh, Sun, Sun, Samek, Temperance, Sagittarius, Devil, Capricorn, Tower, Mars, Scorpio, Pisces, Libra. I mean, those all look. Oh, it's just upside down. I see. I see. That'd be interesting to look into. 73. The deeper arguments in favor of this system must be sought in the Egyptian revival. But in our own opinion, though this arrangement may make some initial appeal to astrologers, it seems to do so only at the expense of other equally valid esoteric considerations. However, to reject such variations out of hand would serve only to perpetuate the bad old habit of claiming divine right for one's own system and pouring contempt on all others. As the Tibetan master once remarked, it is almost a hallmark of occultists to be sectarian, exclusive, and self righteous. 74. In any case, apart from the validity of Worth's remark, a symbol can always be studied from an infinite number of points of view, and each thinker has the right to discover in the symbol a new meaning corresponding to the logic of his own conceptions. There is also the chance that we might all be wrong, to judge from A.E. Waite's last pronouncements on the subject in The Holy Qabalah, 1929. The supposed Hebrew symbolism of the tarot becomes disorganized if there is any doubt as to the attribution of its trump cards to the Hebrew alphabet. Now, there is one card which bears no number and is allocated, therefore, according to the discretion of the interpreter. It has been placed in all cases wrongly by the uninstructed because they had nothing but their private judgment to guide them, and by some who claimed to know better because they desired to mislead. It happens, however, that they also were at sea. I may go further and say that the true nature of tarot symbolism is perhaps a secret in the hands of a very few persons. And outside that circle, operators and writers may combine the cards as they like and attribute them as they like, but they will never find the right way. The symbolism is, however, so rich that it will give meanings of a kind in whatever manner it may be disposed, and some of these may be suggestive, though illusory nonetheless. The purpose of this short paper is therefore to show that unpublished tarots and the methods of using them may be serviceable for divination, fortune telling, and other trifles, but they are not the key of the Qabbalah. They are not the key of the Qabbalah. All right, we will pick right back up at verse number 75. Let me take a quick break to refill my coffee mug. Right back. Don't touch that dial. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. After these messages.
Shut the no, hell you ain't. Bring me my pistol. Look up on that chair, bring me my goddamn pistol.
Hey.
Bring me my pistol. Bring me my goddamn pistol. You goddamn right. But you illegal what you goddamn did. Bring me my pistol. Look up on that chair, bring me my goddamn pistol. I got a goddamn license.
Hey, don't.
He was released out of prison. And do you know, he got on YouTube and made a message direct to me. What? He was in prison for years. He was the one they interviewed and said nothing is more important to him than voting. So he heard my message preaching against homosexuality. He's out of prison. He made a special tape for me. He cussed me out. He said that mother so-and-so, Pastor Jennings, he don't know what he's talking about. He said, I get a hold of him, I'll take his booty. You don't know me, Jack.
No.
I don't care how long you be in prison.
That's right.
It will be a brawl for it all.
For it all.
And a blast from the past.
That's right.
You don't know me, Jack. It'll be a brawl for it all. And a blast from the past.
Well, just in time for St. Patrick's Day, crowds are coming by the dozens to get an up-close view at what some say is a piece of Irish folklore.
Some people in the Crichton area of Mobile say a leprechaun is taking up residence in their neighborhood. A leprechaun. NBC 15's Brian Johnson has more.
Curiosity leads to large crowds in Mobile's Crichton community, many of you bringing binoculars, camcorders, even camera phones to take pictures.
To me, it look like a leprechaun to me. All I gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else seen the leprechaun say yeah?
Eyewitnesses say the leprechaun only comes out at night. If you shine a light in its direction, it suddenly disappears. This amateur sketch resembles what many of you say the leprechaun looks like. Others find it hard to believe and have come up with their own theories and explanations for the image.
My theory is it's casting a shadow from the other limb.
Could be a crackhead that got hold to the wrong stuff. And it told him to get up in a tree and play a leprechaun.
We're going to get down to the bottom of this. Yeah, it's still on there, guy. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, man.
This guy, helping to direct traffic, says he's prepared for his encounter with the leprechaun. He's suited up from head to toe.
This wars off spells right here. This is a special leprechaun flute, which has been passed down from thousands of years ago from my great-great-grandfather who was Irish. I just came to help out.
Others just came to get lucky in hopes a pot of gold may be buried under this tree.
I'm gonna run a backhoe and uproot that tree. I want to know where the gold at. I want the gold. Give me the gold. I want the gold.
This is Brian Johnson, NBC 15 News.
People will do anything for a pot of gold. I mean, anything.
You know what I like? I like the amateur sketch of the leprechaun. It looks like somebody got a really good look at it and got that good drawing out there.
Who did that? I want to know who sketched that.
I don't know. Maybe Brian sketched it.
Doodling.
That was a good story.
I was coming off of being in Miami a night of party, and I don't really remember what I was saying. You know what I'm saying?
Would you like a reminder?
Yeah, sure.
Play some.
Hey, yo, listen, yo, I love it all. I love it all, man.
I like when you like this, Daddy. Daddy, I like when you scrambling and scraping for shit.
No,
I like that.
That was you.
Scrambling.
What? You said, I like when you do it like that, Daddy. When you scrambling and scraping for shit.
Hey, man.
I don't know what I was talking about.
Hey. Hey. It'll be a brawl for it all and a blast from the past. You're gonna hit the sheets of the streets, baby. You either going or coming, you dig? Could be a crackhead. They got a hold of the wrong stuff. And I told him to get up in the tree and play a leprechaun. Al Dickey, peace. That's my real name, Daddy. You did. A blast from the past and a brawl for it all. You dig? All right, we're on 75. From this, which is enough to strike fear into the heart of any other poor commentator, it would appear that Waite had undergone some very high initiation that conferred upon him secrets that few others possess. This is unlikely in actual fact, for initiations are expansions of consciousness and not dispensations of knowledge. And we need not take too seriously his claim that we will never find the right way. His contention is far too defeatist for anyone to take seriously. Hmm. 76. We do not believe his statement to be true, but there is much truth in it. Namely, where he points out that the symbolism is so rich that it will give meanings of a kind in whatever manner it may be disposed. It is this difficulty that makes it unlikely of our ever being certain that we have the once and for all correct attributions. All we can do is to seek the arrangement which seems to be most logical and give the best results in practice. In the present author's view and experience, the attributions given in this book are the best discovered up to now. If we try to appeal to the past, we only find that our medieval predecessors were equally at variance. So we moderns can only do our best, each to perfect his own system, and leave others to do similarly with theirs. There are but two mistakes to avoid. One, the rejection of the whole subject on account of the divergences of opinion between the experts. And two, the espousement of one system in a fanatical way with constant denigration of all other opinions. Each is a mistake of narrow-mindedness, or worse, narrowness of soul. And each defeats the principle behind any system. It is, on the other hand, important for the beginner to find a system which suits him reasonably and stick to it for a good length of time. Symbols should not be taken too seriously. They are but representations of reality, though reality can come with continued use of them. After long years of juggling with symbols, meditating upon them, trying out various patterns, experimenting with theories of attribution, and so on, one may find that one is arranging the symbols to try to fit a knowledge of reality within oneself. After a realization such as this, symbolism becomes superfluous at that level. The symbols may, however, now have a new relevance at the new level of vision, and so one may proceed over a series of new horizons until the one reality, which has no symbol, can have no symbol and needs no symbol because it just is attained. See, that's what we're really going for. Well, I say we, but that's what I'm really going for. You could have got a hold of the wrong stuff and decided to play a leprechaun in the tree. Scrambling and scraping. Oh, wow. You know what? That's exactly right. Rosa Flames says getting on the wrong stuff And getting in the tree to play leprechaun could be a tagline for the clip off. I love it, man. I love it when these clips just line up. I love it when the clips line up. We talking about the tree of life. We just talking about the tree of life.
Could be a crackhead that got hold to the wrong stuff. And it told him to get up in a tree and play a leprechaun.
You don't want to get a hold of the wrong stuff. You don't want to get a hold of the wrong stuff. So in order to prevent getting a hold of the wrong stuff and playing a leprechaun of the tree, you got to study and practice. This is where the experience comes in. This is where the books come in. This is where background information like this comes in. Because there's so many ways to go. An educated decision is a strong decision, isn't it? Don't get a hold of the wrong stuff, guys. Don't get a hold of the wrong stuff. I like that last part here. The symbols may, however, now have a new relevant. And he's talking about here basically you select the system, right? You pick one. He's showing you all these different systems not to prove to you that one is better than the other, but that all of them work for those who work it. Bam. Bom, ba, bom. He says that each defeats the principle behind, he says, what was it? Yeah, each defeats the principle behind any system. On the other hand, it is important for the beginner to find a system which suits him. Find a system that suits you reasonably and stick to it for a good length of time. No scrambling and scraping, right? No scrambling and scraping. Pick one and stick with it. Symbols should not be taken too seriously. They are but representations of reality, though reality can come with continued use of them. See that? After long years of juggling with the symbols, meditating upon them, trying out various patterns, experimenting with theories of attribution, and so on, one may find that one is arranging the symbols to try to fit a knowledge of reality within oneself. This is what the art of Qabala is all about, really. After a realization such as this, symbolism becomes superfluous at that level. The symbols may appear The symbols may, however, now have a new relevance at the new level of vision. And so one may proceed over a series of new horizons until the one reality, which has no symbol, can have no symbol, and needs no symbol because it just is now attained. Stepping stones, ladder of lights. Higher and higher. 79. As a final note, we might list some alternative titles for the trumps used by F.C.H. Bartlett in a section of Pappas, Tarot of the Bohemians, because they are very suggestive for meditation purposes. So 6, that should be the lover's card. Liberty. Are we gonna go down the whole list or just those? Oh, this is the end. Oh my. All right. I'll get my book out. You don't know me, Jack. It'll be a blast from the past. So 6, we've got the lover's card. He says that can be called liberty. 7, that's the chariot. He says that can be called Osiris. 8, equilibrium. That's strength. He says that could be called equilibrium. 9, that's the hermit. Excuse me, not 9. This is 11. 11. I believe that is, what's 11? Yeah, that's the one I was looking for earlier. Justice. That's it. Justice. He says that could be called force. 12. That's the hanged man. That could be called the sacrifice or the great work. 14. Where's that one? That's temperance. 14, he says, could be called the two urns. So there's temperance. You can see the angel pouring the two glasses of water. 15. We know that one. That's the devil, right? 15, Typhon, or the electric whirlwind. Why has it got to be electric? The electric whirlwind. 17, that's the star. It says that could be called the star of the Magi. 18, that's the moon. That could be called twilight. 19, which one is 19? 19 is the sun. 19 could be called the resplendent light. 20, that's judgment. That could be called the awakening of the dead. And 21, we know that is the universe card. That could be called the crown of the Magi. The crown. Crown Royale. Royale with cheese. The crown of the Magi. Good stuff, good stuff. Elah, peace and welcome. Elah says, there are all over the world, most cultures have a spiritual system because at the root, everything comes from the same source. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lady Justice, good morning. Peace, peace, and welcome. Extremely early morning for you. Peace, peace. Rosa Flame says, oh shit, Trav, Typhon. Typhon, right? Even the gods tremble at the force of the 15th path. The electric whirlwind. Typhon. That's pretty cool. Great study, family. Absolutely, absolutely. So this one was a little bit different from the rest of the book. In fact, the remaining chapters are going to be more like this, where it's straightforward information. But yeah, we are moving on through. And so far as the next book study, I'm pretty sure that we've decided on the cosmic doctrine. Usually it's this time of the year where I go back into the mystical Qabala. Time is moving extremely fast, and it seems like we just did the mystical Qabala, if I'm not mistaken. I think we did. But the cosmic doctrine has popped up in reference in this book so many times that I think it's worth going back, especially considered that the information that she channeled to put into that book is coming from a very high level, and it's discussing some supremely abstract concepts that give a deeper understanding to the triple blackness of space, the Ein Sof, R, to the things that are happening behind the tree. So I'm all in. I'm all in for that. So the essential oil fragrance producers stopped producing my Fruity Pebbles. I used to get one from this brand called Sunshine, and it smelled just like Fruity Pebbles. Because you know what? When I want something, I have to keep going until I get it. And it took me a long time to find this one. And as soon as I freaking find this Sunshine Fruity Pebbles, they stopped producing it. So I can't get it no more. Can't get it no more. But that's all right. Did a little bit of research. Next, I found that this Virginia company, Virginia Candle Supply, they produce a Fruity Pebbles. It's not perfectly like Fruity Pebbles, but it smells pretty good. I like it. We'll use it for now. And as you know from my earlier videos, I utilize these scents with my ritual and to go into trance because there's an extremely useful value of using certain fragrances when you're doing certain rituals, and only then. So like if you pick a fragrance that's very potent and you only use it when you're doing magical work, it makes it so much easier for you to slip into trance. It makes it so much easier for you to tap in and connect with the entity that you're working with. So, yeah. Something to be aware of if you haven't really done that before. Jennifer Gordon says, maybe I have run into you by chance. What is this study? What's the topic? So this current study is about Qabalah and its paths and the connection to the tarot cards. Yeah, yeah. The tarot. Petropa says, scent is everything with me. Absolutely. Utilize it as a tool. Utilize it. It's very useful. I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it for years. Find you a collection of fragrances, collection of essential oils, whatever you want to do. Pour that onto one of them little burners. You can put yourself a little tea light candle in it. Spark that fragrance up. Get your meditation position. Get your sigil ready. Get all your tools necessary. Tap in, connect with it, and only use it during your ritual. So the next time you go do that specific type of magic or that specific ritual, the fragrance helps to lock in that, okay, we are starting. It creates a beginning point and an end point. Because some people find it difficult to go into trance. Some people find it difficult to separate their ritual from their everyday stuff. But if you combine a smell and a sound and a visual and a texture and hell, a taste, if you can combine all five senses in your ritual, you create a powerful entryway into going into the astral plane with your eyes open, right? So let's say you have a certain drink that you connect with. It could be wine, it could be a soda. It don't matter what it is. Peach soda. Have yourself a specific drink or maybe a specific thing that you eat when you start your ritual. Have a certain music playing, right? It could be binaural beats. It could be atmosphere. It could be anything. Visuals, right? Get yourself dressed in a certain way. Get your sigil ready. Get all your stuff visually ready. Your four elements, all that good stuff. You can get the fragrance going. And then I mentioned texture, right? That could be what you're wearing. That could be maybe a crystal that you hold or something like that. But yeah, tap in with more than just your eyes and some music. Put all five senses to work, and that's going to solidify the ritual. Lady Justice says, senses connected to the cranial nerves, and that is connected to the 12 stars on the head of the Empress, 12 on each side. Hmm. Yeah. All right, so that concludes tonight's study. I must have unlocked some type of time manipulation city because these things never feel as long as they actually are. 3 hours, this did not feel like no 3 hours. Maybe 2 at most. Anyways, let's go ahead and bring this to a conclusion. I appreciate y'all being here. You'll see me again doing this very same thing next week, possibly more videos during the week. To all of my Goetia students, appreciate you being part of this art and practice. We're getting into some powerful things, and I'm super excited and happy hearing about your experiences and all that good stuff. We're really doing it, man. We're really doing it. I don't know what these other folks are doing, but we tapping in. We tapping in for real. If you weren't present for the live meeting, I know Fat Tony, you weren't able to make it. If you haven't checked already, we got the live meeting posted in the class, right? But yeah, more to come. Thank you all for being here. This has been an excellent session. A blast from the past, a brawl for it all. All right. Let's get up out of here. See y'all next time. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. Peace.
You don't know me, Jack.
No.
I don't care how long you be in prison.
That's right.
It will be a brawl for it all.
For it all.
And a blast from the past.
That's right. I got a goddamn life. Hey, don't.